Okay, hello everyone. This is FIDE Master Viktor Neustoroyev. Thank you for joining our today's webinar. The topic is good and bad bishops. So we are going to talk about how to play and exploit the advantage of having a good bishop against a bad bishop. Okay, fine. So also, guys, I want you to watch my recent video on YouTube about when to sacrifice pieces in chess, where I explain the cases when it makes sense to sacrifice the piece and when you should be looking for a sacrifice. Everything is shown with examples here, like one example. So all 4 examples are here. So including positional sacrifice number 4. And of course, also the link to my YouTube channel. Oh, wait. This is the link to my YouTube channel. So please subscribe to my account, not to miss the videos. Also, I'm going to stream on YouTube. So the webinars and simuls will be streamed here on YouTube. And by the way, guys, did you register for the tournament that I told you last time? Okay, I'll show you. Yeah, so I've got a message from Greek Chess Federation. They are going to organize the first online Chersonissos International Chess Tournament. So today is the last day to register. Please look at regulations. They are going to have a very strong anti-cheating control. So the tournament gonna happen online, but everyone has to have a camera. Yeah, so fair play anti-cheating, it's written here. So people gonna play on chess.com and the camera should be turned on, so the arbiter will be watching how you play. Okay, so if anyone wants to join, so this is the link. The registration fee is not really a big amount. It's only 20 euros for group A and 10 euros for group B. If you have a FIDE ID, you may participate in group A. If not, then only in group B. Okay, fine. Let me close it. And even maybe this. Let's go back to our topic, which is good and bad bishops. So guys, first I want you to tell me if you know 2 rules that Capablanca mentioned about bishops and pawns locations. What do you know? So, for example, the first rule, like when your opponent has a bishop and you don't have a bishop, on which squares to locate your pawns? What does Capablanca say? What did Capablanca said about it? Opposite color. Okay. Any other ideas? Different. Okay. So okay. So let me repeat this rule because it looks like you don't understand. So when your opponent has a bishop and you don't have any bishops, where to locate your pawns? I'm not talking about this exact position, I'm talking in general. So, if you don't have a bishop, but your opponent has, then you should locate the pawns on the squares of this bishop. So if your opponent has a light squared bishop, locate your pawns on light squares. Why? Because they can just restrict this bishop. That's the idea. Okay, so I'm just talking in general. So let me show you like board. Oh wait, new game. Okay, new game, for example. Insert position setup. So like let's say here black has a dark squared bishop. Your pawns should be located on light squares to stop it. Like here, for example. No, this pawn is not required, like that. To restrict the bishop. So you locate them on the light squares. Yes, they can be the object of the attack, but at the same time, they make this bishop on c8 a bad piece. That's the idea. Okay. Hope it's clear. No, this is what I want you to remember. Yes, they can be targets, but what is more important that they restrict the enemy bishop. So your task is also not to allow your enemy bishop to attack your pawns. Okay, and the second rule, if you have a bishop, then you should locate your pawns on the squares of the opposite color. So because if so, then your bishop won't be restricted by its own pawns. For example, let me show you. Game, insert. So let's say you are white and you have a bishop. Then your pawns should be located on dark squares, like that. So because that will be a good bishop. No, at least your pawns won't restrict. But here, actually, black pawns are located quite good, and they stop your bishop. And there is no counterplay. So the only way to get into the enemy camp is to play bishop c8. But actually, knight d6 can just stop this move, and actually, black position is solid. But anyway, this is the way you should allocate your pawns. Don't restrict your bishop with your pawns. Okay, fine. Yeah, of course. Everything depends on the concrete positions, and of course, there are exceptions. It's just some basics that you should keep in mind, but of course, you should take a decision according to what is happening in your exact position. Okay, so this is the first game that we are going to analyze. This is the game played between Yuri Averberg and Semyon Furman. So in this position, black decided to trade the bishops. What do you think? Is it in black favor to trade dark squared bishops or not? Yes, you think it's in black favor to trade bishops. Can you explain why? Pawns are on the same color of the bishop, so they are located on dark squares. Okay, I understand. That could make sense, but actually in this position you should keep another thing into your mind. So take into account something else. So, and the dark squared bishop can't really move, but we can say the same thing about the bishop on d6. Yeah, maybe the bishop on d6 is approximately the same as the bishop on b2. So it okay, I got. So what can I say? So first, by trading these two bishops, black left himself with the bishop on e6, which is definitely a bad piece because it has to stay there and protect a weak pawn on d5. If so, then white advantage of having a good bishop against a bad bishop will increase in case if we remove another bishop pair. So if, for example, this bishop is good too and this is bad, then I would say it's in black favor. But these two bishops are approximately equal. That's why it's a bad idea for black to left himself with the only bad bishop, because in some positions when one of the sides has a bad bishop, it can compensate it by other pieces activity. So this dark squared bishop on d6 could also participate on some other counterplay, probably, like for example, in French defense the bishop is on c8 and it's really bad. However, the position is full of tactics, and white has some weaknesses on d4 especially, so the pawns can be easily attacked and the bishop on c8 can be compensated, but not here. Okay, fine, let's continue the analysis. So rook takes c6 was played first. So of course bishop takes d5 won't work because bishop d5, rook takes d5, rook c1, and white loses. So bishop a3, he takes on c6 first, b takes c6 to protect the pawn on d5. If, for example, here rook takes on c6, then just bishop d5 and white wins a pawn. So rook c6, b takes c6, bishop a3, queen a3, and rook d4. What's the idea of this move? Okay, so there is a question if rook d5 sacrifice might work in this position. No, I don't think so, because then rook c1, and what? It's a check. And then bishop d5. So I actually no. So here even this move can be played and the queen is lost. If rook comes back, fine, let's trade the rooks. Then black has extra rook and that's it. Okay, where? So in this position, rook d5, no, because every time bishop c1 can be played. Oh, I mean rook c1, and then bishop takes d5 and that's it. So it's much better to keep this rook alive, because no, here, for example, after bishop c6, b takes a6, c6, we created weaknesses into his camp, and then yes, rook d4, sorry, not queen d4, but rook d4, with the idea to play rook a4. Okay. Rook takes c6, rook takes c6. Bishop d5 is fine. As for rook d5, probably yes. Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe this is the best option. Oh, wait. If you take, then he takes. No, here we can't sacrifice because rook c1 is coming. But maybe queen d4 is enough. Okay, anyway. I think it's better just to take with the bishop on d5. Okay, so let's go through the main line. Rook d4, threatening with rook a4, queen a5, rook a4 anyway, queen goes to b6. How would you continue in this position? What do you have in mind? How to keep our pieces active, but at the same time make enemy pieces bad. So you suggest bishop e2. That makes sense because it forces this rook to a8, but actually in the game it was queen f1 played with the same idea. And if a5, then I think queen e1 is good. However, here this move was played, rook e8. If now bishop e2, then a5. If you play b4, how can black play to save the pawn? What do you think? What black can do in this position? Rook a7, yeah, I think rook a7 is enough. And then he's threatening with rook takes b4. The position will be very close to equal. Okay, fine. So yeah, queen f1 and queen d3. That was correct. Bishop f7. Now the bishop becomes more passive. So the idea of bishop f7 move was to stop e3, e4. So because then after this move, bishop takes, h7 is hanging, c6 is hanging. So bishop f7, b4 to fix the pawn structure. Bishop goes back to e6, queen d4. Without queens, black would have a constant weakness on a6, and he would have to keep his pieces passive. Queen d4, it takes d4, so the bishop on f3 is much better than the bishop on e6. So the bishop on e6 is restricted by his own pawns. King f8, bishop e2, bishop c8. He has to keep these pieces like that. So now we centralize the king. f3, king e7, king f2, king d6, rook a5. To keep in mind rook c5 move, bishop b7, king e3. Of course, he may deliver a check on e8, but it doesn't really make any sense. After, for example, here king d2 move, he has to go back to protect. So here king c7 was played. He just wants to get the king to b6 to protect the a6 weakness. King d2, king b6, a3. So to support the b4 with the idea to play rook c5. Rook e8, rook c5 now. a5 cannot be played right now. Bishop c8. So while the pawn is protected, he tries to keep the bishop on an open diagonal. How would you continue? What do you think? Bishop d3. Yeah, almost bishop d3. First it was played a4 with the idea to play a5. Oh, wait, with the idea to play b5 maybe and weaken this pawn. Yeah, that makes sense. So he plays bishop d7, then bishop d3, weakening the king side. For example, something like b5 would only simplify the position. Bishop c6, and after rook h5, just h6, the position is about equal. So that's why bishop d3 first, h6, a5 is a check, king b7. What to do then? What do you think? How white can win this position? g4. Okay, so g4 to restrict the enemy bishop. What else this move do? I mean, g4 is just a move, it's not a plan. I want you to continue, I mean, after g4, how to improve white's position. By the way, what do you think? Does it make sense here to trade bishops or trade rooks? And if yes, then why? g4, h4, rook c1, rook g1, g5. Okay, so this plan is suggested. h4, rook c1, rook here. So then g5. Okay, then h takes g5, h takes g5, f takes g5, rook takes g5, and rook e7. And that's it. Looks like you can't do anything to succeed after that. Trade bishops. Why trade bishops? Okay, so Edward, you suggest rook c1, rook e1. What's your rating, by the way? You can just tell me your chess.com rating or your FIDE rating if you have. Mm-hmm. No, okay, 1800. 1800 is good. So why do you suggest to trade rooks? Okay, white has more active bishop and rook, so keep them. Trade rooks so that our king can freely move to the king side. Right. So here Cannon is absolutely correct. So trade rooks. Yes, Edward is correct too. So trade rooks because it can help us to initiate a king march to that side, to the king side. That's why rook c1 was played. Rook c1, bishop c8, bishop g6 to attack the rook, and then he offers a trade. Because if now black rejects this trade and moves the rook to c7, then our rook becomes more active. It goes to e8. So on the c file, our rook is not active. It can be active only on the e file and potentially attacking the g7 pawn. That's why he decided to trade. King c7. Now we fixed the pawn structure first and then moved our king. King h5. So here he has two options. First, he may play bishop f7 and bishop c8. In the game it was played bishop c8, but I want you to find how to deal with bishop f7. What do you think you can do in this position to be able to win the game after bishop f7? f4. f4 and what then? Yeah, please suggest a plan. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good idea to put black in Zogzwan, then take control over g6 square. How to do this? F4, okay. F4. Oh, okay, right. F4 is the first move. Actually, wait. No. F4 can be played as well, but bishop takes F7, king takes F7, then H3, and he can't push the G pawn. He is into Zogzwang. If G pawn is pushed, then he loses the H6 pawn and will win this endgame because of extra pawn. King F8, King G6, King G8, H4, King F8, and then G5. So he takes, we take, he takes, King F7, and now we can get our king to F5. If so, then King G6, and in this position, our task is just to get the pawn to F6, force him to take, and then simply come and take the pawn on C6. If, for example, instead of King G7, here he plays something else, let's say this move, then here king goes here to stop us from coming to d6 and f4, and he is into Zogzwang. He either has to play this or that move. If so, we go to this or that side and capture one of his pawns and then win the endgame. Okay, fine. So actually f4 can be played as well. F4, and if he takes, we take with the king. King g8, h4, then king h7, and then g5 with the idea to play g6 and king h8. He takes. If this move, then here, and if he plays here king f8, then g6, he is in Zogzwang. If he plays this move, we play king g8. Again, he's in Zogzwang and has to lose the g7 pawn. And then after king g4, we just play king h6 and promote the g pawn. If he does this, then after king h7, again, he is in Zogzwang and has to move the king and lose the g6 pawn. So that was another way to play. Okay, so that was a good comment between from Canon. You suggest king f7, king d6 on what position? I think in the line that I suggested. So here, king e7. No, king f7. Okay, here, right? King e7, king f7, and we have queens on the same time. Wait, no. b5. A takes b5, king takes b5, king f5, then a6, king f4, a7, king f3, a8 equals queen g4. So white has the queen much earlier. Okay. Okay, g5, king d5, king f5, king c5. Oh, if so, king f4, d5, king f3, d6, g4. Oh, wait, no. So that was my mistake. So here king c6 is the best option. King f4, d5. Sorry, not g4, but king f3, d6. D6, g4, d7, g3, d8, g2. So no, white promotes first, and then he just plays queen d4 move, and queen g1. That's it. So in all these cases, white promotes first and wins the game. Okay, so let's go back to the game. Bishop f7 wasn't played. Instead, bishop c8. No, now I want you to find the winning plan. What to do? The bishop on c8 is a really bad piece, quite passive, and our task is to exploit it. f4 again. So maybe f4. Okay, what else? Bishop d3, right. Bishop d3. Why this move? Because this is how we tie the enemy bishop down to this diagonal to protect on a6. While a6 is lost, the game is lost too. King f7, h3, a waiting move. King f8, king g6, king g8. So we want him to get away and occupy the h7 square. We just play bishop f1, waiting the tempo move to force the bishop to stay there. What can he play in this position? Of course, here king h8 loses because our king gets to f7 and takes everything. So here he has two options: to play king f8 that happened in the game, or bishop b7. If bishop b7, what do you think? Well, how can we continue? h4 g5. No, but the bishops are on the board, so that's why I'm not sure that this in game would be winning the pawn in game. Bishop e2, bishop c8. Okay, Canon, what's the idea of bishop e2, bishop c8, then bishop d3? Okay. Triangulation, right. That's right. So bishop e2, bishop c8, bishop d3, bishop b7, and bishop f5. Now the bishop may move to only a8. And if so, we play bishop c8, the game is over because he loses this pawn. If, for example, he does a king move, then f4, king g8, check, king goes here, and just f5. And here he gets into Zugzwang. Again, he can only play with his bishop to a8, then bishop c8, the game is over. And if he does king e8 or king e7 move, then just king g7 and that's it. Fine, so that's why probably in the game he played this move. But even after this move, our position is better. Bishop e2 first, king g8, bishop d3, king f8, king h7. So just relocated the bishop to d3 and then decided to play king h7. Why? Because if now he does this, we always have bishop g6 move. For example, king f7, bishop g6, king f8. How would you play if you were white in this position? f4, right. Almost. King h8 was played first, and after bishop d7, f4. Bishop c8, f5. Bishop d7. How to play now? Why did we trap our bishop there on g6? What do you think? So bishop h7, bishop g8, bishop e6. Okay, that makes sense. let's say bishop h7. Bishop e8, bishop g8. And what if? No. What if g6 move? Okay, so it's still a winning position for white, but no, here the key idea is to do, you'll see what to do. Bishop goes to c8 and bishop e8. This is the key move. We attack the pawn on c6. If, for example, he does this move, bishop d7, and then he is stuck with his pieces. If he does this, then bishop c8, we win. So bishop e8. So if he takes, if he does king e8 move, then king takes g7, and then we take either f6 or h6 and promote. So for example, if king e7, then what do you think? How can we win in this position? What should we do? Take on h6 or not? h4, h5, then take. G5 because king will be... Okay, so let's say we does this move. Yeah, because if king h6, then he goes here. And then I'm not sure if we can succeed. h4, let's say he does bishop d7 move, h5, bishop c8 move, king h6 now, still king f7. And the king is trapped. So it won't work. Yes, the key move is h4 and then g5. So for example, bishop d7, g5. And now, if he takes on f5, we take on f6 and promote. If he takes on g5, we take and promote anyway. Then f7. And nothing can stop us from queen promotion. So that's why he played this move, bishop e8, to sacrifice the bishop, because he understood that the f7 pawn can be promoted when the king is on e7. If not to play king e7 move, but for example h5 right now, then what do you think? What's the best option? Still g5? No. If g5 now, g5, f takes, f6, bishop here. It won't work. So here actually everything works, including g takes h5. But king f6 was played in the game. King f6, h takes g4, h takes g4, and then we just push the g pawn, get our king back, and play f6. And now just king f5, then g7. If now king comes here, then king f5, so he can't capture on f6. We go here. But he has, oh, okay, let's say this move, then here, this move, king c7, he goes here, and then we play this move, take and promote. So he can save the pawn. So g7, bishop f7 was played. King a5, bishop g6, king d6. But we took on c6, and here we can either take on d5 or play just this move, and then play either b5 or take on d5, anything. Maybe not to take on d5, because if so, we may allow him to play bishop e4 to stop the a pawn. And before, then we promote first, and finally checkmate with the queen. The next move is queen f8 or queen e8. Oh yeah, queen f8. So he takes, and then queen a comes to f8. This is a checkmate. Okay, fine. So here another option to win was not to take on f6, but to take on here h5. So then, for example, he takes here, king f6. What to do? Oh, bishop d3, because otherwise we play h6 and h7. He has to keep the bishop on this diagonal. King g7, then, and then we just get his bishop for a pawn. So, but how? No, we don't play h6, h7 immediately. We first advance the pawn to h5, then play h7, and after this move, we play h6. And now he has to go either f6 or f8, and then we escape with our king and come to the queen side and just take his pawns. Okay, no, actually the question is not how many variations, but how deep these variations should be. So how many? Two, king e8 and bishop b7. How deep? I think just several moves here. So you should analyze that h4, g5, and you promote the f6 pawn. So you should only analyze two options, king e7 here and h5, two lines. Up to maybe 7 move is enough. However, it's already obvious that white is absolutely winning here. Okay, so what happened in this game? So we get the enemy bishop passive. We forced him to go to c8. So he was totally restricted with his own pawns. Then we trade rooks and also initiated a king march to the king side, get more space, and finally sacrifice the bishop to be able to take the pawns of his king side to promote our f pawn. This is how it works. Of course, sometimes we can even win without any sacrifices. Okay, fine. Let's close it. So the next game is a good example of how to make a passive bishop a bad bishop. Okay, fine. So this is the game between Theodore Tyler and Alexander Alekin. So how to play for black in this position? Of course, it's obvious that black bishop is better than white. But how to play for a victory in this position? What do you think? What comes to your mind? So rook d8. Okay, can you explain? Yeah, so here we definitely have a good bishop, and our task is to find a way how to exploit it. Okay, rook d8 to push the bishop to a bad square. Rook e8. Queen d7. And then rook d8. Okay, right. So queen d7 is the best move. Why? Because if we do rook d8, then he first plays rook c1 with a tempo, and then bishop gets to e1. So at least his rook gets some activity. But if he play queen d7, then he has to play with the bishop, because if he does this, then rook d8, and he can't. He'll struggle with this bishop. So if queen c2, then bishop f6. So queen d7, he has to play this move, then a for queen c2. As for queen d1 in this position, I think black is winning after rook c8. Black can get his rook to the second rank and then attack the b2 pawn. So that's why queen c2, but then rook c8 with the tempo, queen e2. How to continue? What do you think? Queen c6 and queen c2? Almost. No, here let's attack pawn weaknesses. So b3 looks like a too risky move because it allows the queen to escape. So here queen d5 to take on a2, and what to do? The only way to save this pawn is to play a3, but a3 means that we can play b3. So here b3, because if not, then if for example we do this move, then queen e6 or queen b5 can be played. Queen e6, I think. I believe black is still winning, but so why not to play b3 then rook c2? e4, queen c4 against queen's trade is in black favor. Queen e1, queen c2, f4. He tries to get some activity. But then what's the winning plan? What do you think? How can we exploit his weaknesses? Yeah, now the queen is bad. Either bishop c5, and then I believe c5 is a temporary position for the bishop. Bishop c5, then bishop d4, right. So bishop c5, h1, bishop d4 is taken on b2. There is nothing he can do to be able to protect. That's why f5 to create a counterplay, but bishop b2, and nothing works. This is where he resigned. Why? Because let's just check what he can do. He may take here, then we take. So what else? We keep in mind the idea maybe to take on a3. Let's say queen b4. Then queen f2 with a temper. Rook, no, if he takes, then it's a back rank mate. So he does this move. Rook d1, for example. Okay, so rook d1, then we play b2 in this position. And rook c1 is the next move. The game is over. For example, here, queen a4, rook c1, queen here, queen f8, queen a6, and this move. So the only way to stop is to play what? Either queen b3 is the only way, but if queen b3, just queen f1 with a checkmate. Okay, fine. So here it was important not only to make his bishop passive, but also not to allow his rook to be activated. And then we tried to attack his weaknesses and finally activate our rook and successfully took the pawn on b2 with bishop c5, bishop d4. White couldn't do anything, and that's why he lost the game. Oh, the other game I want to show you is the game played between Mikhail Botvinnik and Ilya Khan. Ilya Khan is known because of Khan Sicilian variation, the opening that I play for black. So actually, he was a Soviet master who successfully invented this idea, first played by Paulson brothers. Okay, so what do you think? It's white to move in this position. What do you think white should do right now? So of course it's obvious that this bishop is better than this one. It's located in the center. It makes an outpost, while the bishop on a6 is not doing much. What should we do? At the same time, it's difficult to activate the bishop. Yeah, it's white to move. But you're absolutely right that. So if, for example, we do something like that, then rook d5, c takes d5, bishop f1, king takes f1, then g6. So g4 probably, g takes f5, g takes f5, and in this position our king is too exposed and black has really good chances to give a perpetual check or just checks and take some pawns. And white can't take any advantage from having this passed pawn on d5. So what to do? So the queen a4 was suggested. So queen a4, for example, but then still rook d5 works. So c takes d5, bishop takes f1. But if first we take here, then we traded a good bishop for a bad bishop. That's not in our favor. So another move that was suggested is e4. That's right. This is how we reinforce our bishop on d5. Now if he takes, we take with the e pawn. What can he do in this position? What do you think? Does b5 work for black here? Is it a good way to activate the bishop or not? What comes to your mind? No? Okay, why not? What happens in case of b5? It loses a pawn. How? Okay, so c takes b5, bishop b5, rook c1, rook c1, c4. Okay, I see. Now rook c1, rook c8, I think. Okay, Anirudh, so you can't take the pawn on c5 immediately because your rook is hanging with the enemy bishop. So b5, c takes b5, bishop takes b5. So the rook is hanging. How to deal with it? It's true that we can gain a pawn. I want you to find how exactly. Rook b1 to take on c5 with the queen. Okay, so rook b1, rook b1, and queen b6. How to play them? No, I'm talking about this line. b5, c takes b5, bishop takes b5, rook b1, attacking the bishop, queen b6, protecting both this bishop and the c5 pawn. Bishop c4. If bishop c4, then I would play bishop to a4, attacking your queen. What would you do? If you take mine, I take yours. If you take my bishop, I'll take your rook. Bishop f7. So bishop a4, bishop f7. King f8. Hmm. Okay, that makes sense. However, I believe it's not a winning position for white, but let's try. So b5, c takes b5, bishop b5, rook b1, queen b6, bishop c4, bishop a4, bishop f7. I suggested king f8. And here you said queen a2. Yeah, queen c7, maybe. Then c4 cannot be played. Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. White is better, but okay. So if bishop c2, no, there is no pawn. Because if you do this, I can take here. And if this, then here. Or something like that. So I think it's a draw. Okay, fine. So actually the best way in this position is just to play queen b2. Because this is how you can gain a piece. c4 is not doing much. King h2. Rook b8, a4. And then we just gain a piece. Not bishop c4, but a4. Because bishop c4 only gains the exchange, while a4 gains a piece. Okay, fine, let's go back. So b5 wasn't played. Instead, bishop c8, queen e4 to activate the queen, bishop d7, queen a7 to attack the b6, bishop e8, so he needs to protect the f7 pawn, rook b1 in this position. The b6 is hanging. The only way to defend is this move. Then I want you to find the plan that helps white to gain a pawn in this position. What is this plan? What do you think? Queen b8, queen b8, rook. Oh no, rook d8 doesn't work. Queen b8, king f8 maybe. Yeah, queen b8, king f8. And what's then? Okay, so right, a4 with the idea to play a5 and undermine the c5 pawn as well. So king h7, a5, b takes a5, queen takes a5. The pawn is hanging. There is nothing he can do to save it. That's why he plays rook a6, queen takes c5, rook a2. What now should we play in this position? What do you think? So which next move to play? Queen e3. What's the idea of queen e3 move? Yeah, so queen e3 to prevent queen g5. This is a key move. It's easy to blunder, but yeah, queen e3. Now queen g5 cannot be played. If so, we just trade the queens. So he plays queen a6. Sorry, not rook a6, but queen a6. Rook b8. Queen e4 to protect the bishop. King h2, kind of prophylaxis. Then in this position he has several moves. He played rook a3 in the game, but instead he could do queen c2 move. How to deal with queen c2? What do you think? Queen g3. Okay, then rook a1. Do you understand the idea of rook a1 move? What do... Okay, I think queen g3 is better than queen f3. So I play rook a1. What do I want to do with after that? What's my next move? What black next move? Let's say you capture. Can you, if you capture on e8, I'll play queen c1, threatening with a mate on g1 or h1. What do you think white can do now? Is white able to save in this position or not? Okay, so Aaron. Okay, so queen g6, f takes g6, bishop. Right. I'll show you. So queen g6, pawn has to take. Bishop g8, the only move is king h8. Bishop f7, discovery check. The only move is to get the king there, and then either bishop takes on g6 or pawn takes on g6. It's gonna be a checkmate. So rook a3 was played. Instead, queen c5, rook a2, and rook e8, with the idea to trade the queens. Sorry, to trade the rooks. So if here, for example, queen moves, queen c2, rook a2, rook takes a2, queen e7, and after queen f2, just queen takes a5, and that's it. So that's why black decided to sacrifice the queen, but actually after that, the game is over. So if bishop a4, then queen f7, with f6 idea after that. So bishop here, queen f7. What can he do? Nothing. Let's say if he does this move, then just queen g6, king goes to the back rank, and queen e8, gaining the bishop. So the game will be over. So I think the key idea was to make a bishop a really bad in this position. So first we reinforced our outpost, and then we found the other object of the attack, the b6 pawn. We activated our pieces to be able to attack this pawn. And finally, we found a plan that could undermine the c5 pawn and gain it after that. And then the position became absolutely win. However, the task was not to allow him any counterplay with queen g5, so that's why we play queen e3 and then successfully simplified the position by trading the material. Okay, fine. Now I want to give you two exercises to find the best move and the best plan. So please look at this position and tell me what white should do. What do you think? If we are talking about good and bad bishops, what white should do in this position to be able to get a winning position, at least a strategically winning position? Okay, yes, that's right. That's right. So bishop h6. Now he has to take, otherwise he loses the exchange. So he takes. Then we take the e5, and now we have this good bishop that can also go to d5 against this bad bishop. So if, for example, queen d2, then just rook a d1, and finally bishop d5, and he has to sacrifice the material. If here queen g7, then just queen c5, and in this position he can't take. He can't take on b2, because if so, we play bishop d5 first, king goes to g7 if he wants to keep the material, and after queen e7 he has to escape and keep his rook unprotected. So we just gain the material. Maybe he can play something else, but I'm not sure, because his king is too exposed in this position, and we can fully exploit the advantage of having a really good bishop. So b7 is another weakness. So if there is no king side tactics, then we will be attacking the b7 pawn. Actually, what I want you to learn from this puzzle is that when when we have a good bishop against a bad bishop, it makes sense to trade other pieces to simplify the position and even increase the advantage of having a better bishop than our opponent has. It's black to move in this position, and I want you to find a winning plan for black. So white can't really do anything to be able to improve his position. That's why his task is only to stay with his pieces, like bishop g2, bishop e2, bishop f1, something like that. Just tell me what black can do to be able to win this game. What's a winning plan for black? A6 b5. Okay. If you play a6, I'll just keep my bishop here on e2 or f1. So a6, bishop e2. b5 immediately? No, b5, c takes b5. I think it's risky. Bishop c2, and what does bishop c2 give you? Oh wait, I'm not sharing the screen, sorry. Well, no, I'm sharing the screen. Okay, let me do it again. Okay, so it's because I clicked on something, I think. I think now it's, okay, now it's perfect, you can see. Okay, fine. So bishop c2, and what then? Then bishop b3, and then b5. I'll show you. So do these, and if b5, c takes b5, you take here, I'll do c4. I think it's a draw. What about bishop a2? Bishop a2, as well as, no, bishop a2, not king d3. No, it's not. It's not a winning plan. Okay, any other ideas what to do? Bishop d3, come on, no, it won't work. Bishop d3, you just lose the bishop. And no, even if you take the h3 pawn, somehow bishop can come to f5 and support the g4 pawn. You won't win. To locate the bishop on e8 and then play b5. I think it works. I think it works. So bishop g6, bishop e8, then a6, b5. But bishop c2, bishop a4, and a6, b5 is a better choice, I think. Maybe they are approximately equal. So bishop c2, bishop e2, bishop a4, bishop d3, for example, a6, bishop a2, b5. What can he do now? If now he takes, then we take with our pawn. Then we, no, let's say he does c4 because the pawn is hanging. If he tries to support it with the bishop, then just this move, and that's it. Wait, right? So if he does bishop f3, then these, and he loses the d5 pawn. Let's say he takes, we take a4, king d5, so we are able to stop the pawn. So then we create a passed pawn and get our king to the king side. So c takes b5, a takes b5. If he does c4, then in this position, the best option, well, actually b4 wins as well. What is best? Okay, let's take, he takes bishop e8, then bishop goes here, And finally, we take on d5, and we are able to stop the a pawn with king c6. So this is actually a winning plan because the king can capture on d6. If so, we promote the c5 pawn immediately. So what if he doesn't take? Let's say, what if he does bishop b3? Then we take and play bishop b5 anyway. If bishop b3, then c4. And then we take on d5 with our king. If here he takes, then we take, the pawn dies. c4, just capture it, and then win the game. a5, king c6, in the previous variation. What is the previous variation? So c takes b4, a takes b4. Ah, I see what you mean. So here a5, king c6, king e4. d5, king e5. No, if king goes to e3, we play king b5 and just take the pawn. So king e5, then d4. He takes, we promote d5, king d7. a6, c2, a7, c1 equals queen, a8 equals queen. And now our task is to win this game with queen f4. Yeah, this is a checkmate. That's probably the best option. Okay, fine. Any questions about good and bad bishops? Is everything clear? As for the next webinar, I think I'm going to conduct a simul. And maybe the one after that, I will talk about how to improve your ability to calculate. Okay, thank you for attending. So don't miss my next webinar. I will announce it everywhere on chess.com. So please follow me on chess.com. Not to forget about the webinar. So this is my profile. So I'm going to run a simul. I'll also share it on Instagram, Udemy, Facebook. Okay, so it's a good question. How do you find such moves like bishop e8 sacrifice? Kenan, if you want to know about when to sacrifice pieces, I kindly recommend you to visit my YouTube channel and watch the last video that I created about when to sacrifice pieces. So this is this video. Yeah, I'll explain 4 cases when to sacrifice the material, when it makes sense to calculate such lines. Okay, so thank you. Please and attend my next webinar. It's going to be a simul. And also invite your friends, chess players, to visit my webinars. They are free, and actually I want to increase the number of people up to 50 for the webinars. If you have any suggestions of how to do this, you're welcome. Okay.